Everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is June 21st, 2022, and we are meeting at the district office located in Sandy, Utah, 9361 South, 300 East. This evening, I'm excusing Amanda Oakes, Mont Millerberg, Clarine Arnold, Leon Wilcox, and Dan Harper. So, with that, our first item on the agenda is a report from USBA, and because Mr. Millerberg is absent, Amber Schill will provide that update for us.
Hey, great. Okay, there's a lot of items, so if you guys want, I could maybe send it. There's a bunch of dates I could send those to Cindy if you want. So the first thing is just to remind you guys, there is a professional development webinar on Thursday this week, and it is part 2. Right. It's June 23rd at 7 p.m. and social media and the law. And you can submit questions prior to the presentation. You better hurry and send questions to Richard, or you can send them to me if you have any. And then they're going to be revamping the USBA website. So if anyone has any feedback on that, you can send that to me or Mont. And then just a reminder, the pre-delegate assembly will be held August 26th at 6 p.m. and it's in our office in the big building down there. Canyon Center. Thank you.
And what are the dates for that?
That is August 26th at 6 p.m. And that's the pre-delegate assembly, and all board members are invited to that. And then the next morning, which is Saturday, that's a Friday night. So Saturday, the August 27th at 9 a.m. is actual delegate assembly where we will vote on priorities. So from our board, we can send 3 people. So the 2 delegates that are already on there are Mont and Amanda. So there's a spot for 1 more person to go. And all your names are listed. So we did that so that we could just wait and see who can go, who's in town, who wants to go. I just don't know if any of you 3 would like to volunteer for that. You want to go or you'll be in town.
And it's 9 a.m. to
9 a.m.
11 or
yeah,
noon.
it's usually a couple of hours. Yeah, I think we're usually done by 11:30. So does anyone want to? No,
you haven't done that before, have you?
yeah, because Steve and Nancy both are. So,
You've been there. Your
great.
turn.
So Holly
will be the.
I could always just go and look good anyway.
Yeah, you
I don't have to
go,
vote.
but you just can't vote.
Yeah.
So, and you do have to be in person to vote. We're not doing any, but we may stream it as a webinar, but you can't vote. You have to be in person to vote. So.
Last year I listened to it on Zoom or something. What was it on? Some digital thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so Holly will be our 3rd delegate. And then just a reminder to work on the master board certification. And we are going to ask the legislature to pass a resolution again. And on the resolution, it does list the boards that received that award. So I know last year there were legislators who are like, why is not my board? so anyway, it's a good thing if we can do it. And I think we can. Just the majority of us have to do it. So
And that includes superintendent and business.
Yeah.
So Rick and Leon,
And
right?
we had all of us last time.
We did.
We had
I
everyone.
think we had 100%.
We
Yeah.
did. That was really good.
We can do it again. When's that due?
It's just by December 1st. So you have until the end of November. Okay, and then also USBA is now accepting proposals for the annual conference that's held in January. And the application is on the website. So I don't know, we should, I don't know if there's anything we'd like our district to present. I don't know. You can think about that. Or even Rick, do you have any ideas of anything you think would be helpful to other school board members in the state?
I presented a couple of times, so I mean, whatever. Does Richard do any like needs assessment with your leadership team on things that people want to hear about?
Yeah, we do a survey. Remember, we did a survey at the end, so we have a whole list of stuff that people. We usually like to just try to get like a good mix of topics, so it's not like all on one topic. We can all be thinking about it. I think the deadline is not until August, sometime in August.
Can we submit it to you?
So Richard, it's,
Richard.
well, it's on the USBA website. It's like,
But yeah, but we ought to. I mean, really what it is we put together a plan of what we would do if we were offering a workshop. So I think it'd be something that we all kind of
Ladies and gentlemen.
come together.
Okay.
you know, what are some of
It's
the
not just kind of a
things in the
request for
past?
topic. It's like,
We're.
here's what we can give,
Okay.
and here's what we
That's who's
can.
gonna
What we
present.
could do and.
Oh,
this is
that's
who
right.
presented, you know.
This is our agenda, our topic.
And kind of a basic outline of it, yeah.
Well, one, I know it's controversial, but our sensitive materials policy and
Yeah.
library book policy, I mean, up at the state superintendent meeting, I felt like you know, it's still difficult, but our position's probably one of strength and one that's the most consistent, that makes the most sense. And there were a lot of questions, you know, at me about how did you develop it and what are kind of the underpinnings and review challenge, you know, pathways that we developed. I mean, so I know there's a lot of need for that, and it's probably come up
Yeah.
because boards are and superintendents are all trying to.
I would say with at the PTA, being with PTAs from around the state and Stacy from Alpine and a couple of other district people, a couple of people from other places, they were all very interested in that. What are you doing and how are you navigating it?
That may be a board, me, Dan, or Dan.
Around the policy committee.
I mean, however.
One board. I do think, I mean, I think our policy is really good. So the next thing on here is just an FYI, and that is that USBE is holding a special meeting on. They're creating a model library policy, and that's on June 30th. So I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know if we should do that, if they're doing it, but maybe if we still think ours is better than we want to, I don't know. So we can think about that.
What I could hear about theirs, I think ours is gonna be better. Not that anybody asked, but mine was just to continue to move forward on ours.
Well, and what happened was, I think they couldn't even get, I think the committee tried to work on it and couldn't get anywhere, is this right? And then, so then they decided to call a special meeting. That's just that. So that, I don't think,
The committee or the full board?
I think the full board. So that would be,
They've got
Any controversial thing lately, they've been sort of passing.
They've got at least two competing model policies, and it seems like they can't get behind either one of them, or they can't get a majority behind either.
that's the thing. That's what I wonder if they'll, what will happen.
That's why my suggestion would be just to continue on the way we have been.
Yeah, I agree. And then just a couple more dates, then I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lot.
So real quick, while we're still talking about that request for presentation proposals for us. I think if you think of something later, right, it's kind of hard to think of things right here on the spot. If you think of something later, maybe just contact. Who do we contact Rick maybe, and then we can put it on the agenda to talk about if it really looks like we're interested in actually putting together something and an offering to present.
Well, I know several of the districts have been sort of struggling with strategic plans. It might be interesting.
I know that's another topic.
The process and stuff. I haven't heard any really good presentations on that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, it's been so recent,
I think either one of those. Maybe we should wait and see what happens with the USBE one. And if we still think.
Well, there's a lot of questions. I know at superintendent meetings, the legislative audit that Weber went through. There was a lot of correlation between that and their strategic plan and how they talked about this, about how they're measuring outcomes, right? And So, and I think Nancy pointed out that the auditors actually pointed to ours, right, as a model. So that, I mean, that might be another thing that other districts and boards are interested in, just hearing and
That
seeing.
is true.
Well, yeah,
Our
what
indicators,
our indicators and targets from before COVID. But yeah,
Yeah, they did show they showed the slide of graduation rate and how we had our goal and how, just the comparison. Okay, so yeah.
sorry.
if
So
we have
any other ideas?
I think those two are good.
Right now?
There's two more things. December 3rd is a new board member training. Or whoever, if we have, well, we're for sure gonna have one new board member. And then February 6th is Day on the Hill. For USBA, so
Day.
February 6th.
And is it going to be formatted like here?
Yes, I think so. We're also gonna do, well, the committee's talking about doing something where every week, a few districts will be invited to go up to the Capitol that week. So they're trying to kind of like get more people and get the superintendent, a few board members to go up. So every week we have live there. But then will be the day when like everyone goes.
Does the February 26th day, does that involve student groups again?
Yes, but February 6th.
February 6th.
Not 20th. Yeah, I think we'll just have a few student groups. Like, I think we liked how that ended up last time. So there's a committee working on that, so. Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you. Going back to the delegate assembly, the pre-delegate assembly, do we know yet what
Yes.
who the presenters or what the panel is?
We have a mix of legislators this time. So we have a mix of rural, urban, and also Democrats and Republicans. And they have invited Kathleen Reedy this time. Susan, did you hear me say that? Kathleen is invited to our delegate assembly. So having a mix of legislators, Democrats, Republicans, rural, urban. So,
Conservative.
and I still remember
What dates?
that one. Remember?
It's here in our.
Here.
Yeah, the one that's here.
Okay, got this.
August 20th.
August 26th, yeah.
That'll be good.
Yeah, so that'll be good, because we had some comments last time that it'd be good to have like a mix of people, so. I don't know all the other ones. I think they're still working on getting all the legislators.
Okay. Any other questions or? Okay. Thank you for starting that update. So. Let's
Start putting the dates in.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to.
Do you want me to
maybe-
send that to Cindy? or not?
Yeah, and maybe
Yes.
Cindy, you could kind of give us a recap.
I can send the whole document, and then if you just want to
Yes.
send, if you want me to just forward that.
That would be easier. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, thank you. So now we've got some time, board, to if you recall at our roundtable discussion, which was a fabulous discussion, but we did run up against time frame a little bit, and so we weren't able to bring it back around to discuss kind of next steps. And at that meeting, I committed that I would sit down with the superintendent and we would summarize that discussion and then provide a summary to the board so that you guys can have that and we can then do some of our follow-up discussion based on that summary. So that's what we're going to spend our next little amount of time on. And so you should have a hard copy of that in front of you as well as. Yeah, so there should be a hard copy in your folder as well of the summary, as well as a copy the administration put together kind of an action plan with timeline and who would be responsible for some of the priorities that the administration brought forward as part of the roundtable discussion. So with that, and these are all just draft, they're all in draft form at this point, and so with that, let's just kind of take a look at the summary and let's go through it a little bit kind of sequential, if that's okay, even though I know we might end up jumping around a little bit. And with the idea of, first of all, did we capture the thoughts that were expressed during the roundtable? And then are there things that we missed? Are there things that aren't quite clear? Maybe we kind of got it close, but not exact. And keep that in mind. And then also the idea of next steps. And as we've said time and time again, we can't do everything all, all at once. And so we also start narrowing on some of the higher priority things. But with that said, we can do a lot of things at the same time, because some things would be just kind of initial exploration things, and other things we want to push through for more implementation. Right? So somewhere along in that spectrum, and to have balance. So we asked the superintendent to, and he did on this draft copy, to put in the departments that would most likely, lead out on each particular topic area. So with that introduction, Rick, Superintendent, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I really appreciate all the effort that's been poured into this. And I think, now we're really looking at more of a refinement process to get a little more granular. Just a couple of ideas in thinking about, kind of some end game or some things that would make it actionable. Might be a recommendation to look at high level committee work by the board in each focus area that would kind of set the table for if and when those priorities are unfolded and rolled out. So that's one idea. And many, now that doesn't, I want to say that also recognizing that doesn't take away from existing committees. For example, long-term planning is still there. Policy committee, there are ad hoc committees that would continue to run, but now that we really have some clear focus and direction on those focus areas, I think just having, at the board level, some type of committee that would help to kind of create some oversight to that as it goes. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think establishing indicators. So remember in the current plan, existing plan prior to this one, we really set those mostly on the academic side. That's where it's pretty heavy that way, starting with early literacy, 8th grade achievement, ACT, and graduation rates. So you may decide or consider as a board. I think those are all still very important and critical to student success, but we know coming out of the pandemic, there are certain things that have happened that have been really disruptive in the learning cycle. For example, attendance may be something that you want to report monthly, quarterly, semester. Another one may be that I'm seeing is students that are off track for graduation. So we're just seeing massive numbers of F's and D's. Upwards of 20 to 30% of our freshmen and sophomores are off track. That's nobody's fault. We knew this, if you remember the conversation around Hurricane Katrina early on, as I looked at that data over time, right, you can see those trends in something that disruptive where schools stopped, literally stopped, those long-term trends emerged, and we're seeing that. But we're doing, lots to intervene to recover there. But that might be something that the board may want to consider, something that we want to look at going forward, especially in how that affects graduation rate. Another example, we know student behavior is at an all-time high. I mentioned in the update, talking with some of our principals, specifically at Midvale Elementary, the number of incidents that not just disruptive behavior, but we're talking about violent behavior that really is something to be concerned about. We may want to look at our office referrals as some data points to just track, and that really feeds into how that relates to tier 1 human centered supports and life skills, to see, are we making a difference? Are these competencies that we've adopted and providing curriculum and those modules, is that making a difference and making a dent when it comes to those supports as well as behavior and attendance? So anyway, those are things on my mind that I've been thinking about. They're kind of occupying my mind. And then just reporting, right? So kind of determining, I think pre-pandemic, kind of going back to that discussion about strategic vision and indicators, we're very dialed in on certain times during the year that the board would get these reports. And then when the pandemic hit, all that kind of fell apart, right? So what I would recommend is you give us direction and lead. And I'm thinking probably early August is that we come back to you with recommendations for baselines in present level of performance based on, what's happened academically, with students as well as their overall wellness, and then set that baseline, and then the board make a determination on targets going forward, right? And then we can measure those over the year to see if we're making gains. But I do think it's probably a little bit dangerous to try and establish those baselines based on pre-pandemic, just because we saw that learning loss not only in Canyons but across the state. And it's, as we all know, it's much bigger than just academics. And that's really the beauty of the strategic vision, right? Because it's a lot more holistic, and it accounts for whole child and academics. So that would be something to kind of get that geared back up and going again as early as August, as I think we could pull that together.
Might be also good to do some just polling of teachers and see where we're at in teacher burnout at the beginning of the year, and follow that. A lot of the things that you talked about have a direct correlation with what's going on with our teachers. But if we continue to get all this happening, we're going to continue to get more teachers leaving.
So that's a great point, Steve. So under human-centered supports, that maybe hiring and retention is a data point that, the board would like to look at through the year. I still think too, like the other data points or indicators that you've had in the past, I think are still very relevant. Like volunteerism under community engagement is excellent. That's under service. Under community engagement, it's the communications that occur between the district and parents and the community. So we can still demonstrate all of that is happening. But yeah, and those are great. But I think some of these that have kind of really grown out of the pandemic that we're aware of and we know are having an impact, we want to take a close look at.
Some other things that research is coming out with, they're talking about the main issue that we're coming up with is empathy. So we need to really have some kind of empathy and compassion, and wherever our empathy levels are down like 40% over the last 20 years. And it's really tanked out. And the other one is the whole issue on social media and cell phones. That seems to be really affecting behavior right now. And so I know these are issues we've talked about. They sort of fit within the strategic plan, but sort of triaging, trying to figure out how we're going to deal with those, because I know social media is also a real big issue in cell phones in the classrooms right now, and contributing to burnout with teachers.
And just to add to that, Stephen, at my fourth bullet point, just my recommendations to the board, parent engagement, really is a big part of that, right? I mean, and reestablishing that relationship, and it's everything from communicating, health protocols, so parents clearly understand, like, this is what you send your kids to school, and when you don't send your kids to school, because over the last 2 years, it's been very unclear that way, and now we're trying to kind of re-engage all the way from that to digital citizenship, to screen time, to understanding instruction and PLCs. We talked about this a little earlier about just helping, whether it's canyoneering or however we want to do it. And Jeff and our communications team we've been talking a lot about this. How can we be more intentional in engaging parents, especially coming out of the pandemic? And I think that's got to be one of those priorities, in my opinion.
I agree.
In my process of walking the streets, I've had several comments on our newspapers that we sent out on how that's a good form of communication. And we may want to add some of this other stuff. I think the problem we're seeing right now is a lot of miscommunications going on. And we need to have that on our website with, this is the true story, and publish that before it snowballs. So in the communication, it's not only just getting the news out, but getting out the facts, the true facts. And we may want to use our newspaper because monthly flyer, whatever we're sending out, it does seem to be appreciated. People say they go to that. It's awesome. And they're looking for insights that's going on in the district and stuff. So it does, because we've had some concern whether or not it was being read it. I've had several people say that
They read it. Awesome.
it's a value that they use it quite frequently. In fact,
Nice
even
to
read
hear.
the board member stuff. I thought that was unusual.
Awesome.
That's nice to hear.
Thumbs up for Fort Collins, huh?
Yeah.
Let's not do anything. No.
So, so Rick, can I go back to your thought about forming committees? So were you thinking of forming a board standing committee for each of those 4 areas?
Well, I mean, to me, I think when it comes to,
There's enough work to do.
yeah, there is, because there's so much, I mean, this is so comprehensive and there's so much to do. And I think aligning, when you look at the timeline and just unpacking all of this and kind of getting it in the right order. I think one thing that's important, you guys have heard me say this, but now more than ever, it really offers us an opportunity to be arm in arm, board and administration and employees. And I think, coming out of the pandemic, the newness of the strategic vision, everything that's happening, it does kind of afford us that chance, right? So I think forming board committees at that level in each of those 4 focus areas, one is it just keeps the board apprised and in front of strategic vision as the board should be and providing that guidance. But it also really provides an accountability mechanism that we can self-report in open meetings to the public and to our employees and our parents and our patrons about what's happening versus just the administration. And obviously the committees can call on administration to get information that they want, but I think being at the front of the table is an important piece too.
Yeah, and so, but that would be in addition to long range planning
Yes.
and policy
Yes.
committee that are one of our other board. Yeah, so anyway, sorry, thanks for clarifying. I just want to make sure I understood. Holly?
I love that idea because not only does it provide accountability and helping us all stay on the same page, but I also think that it helps provide an opportunity to be unified as in our committee work with cabinet members and be able to learn from their expertise, opinions, and be able to work together. And I really appreciated having those workshops as we were forming the strategic plan and being able to get to know some of our chairs and our directors here and be able to hear things and their experiences. So I think that was so extremely valuable, and they provide such insight as far as how to accomplish, The thing I was thinking when you were talking about, those indicators, I was thinking also when we're talking about teachers, it would be nice. I know in our last board meeting, we talked about exit surveys. It'd be nice to have that be one of the indicators to look at. And then with the parent engagement piece, as an indicator, and I, you and I met about this, but I just think it would be really great that canyoneering night at the district was so great, and to move that to the neighborhood schools and even have an effort for administrators and principals to reach out to their communities to be available once a quarter, because there is so much misinformation. If parents can get to know and then develop a little bit of a relationship there with the administrator and be educated on what's going on at school and what's not, and have that school building be a center for the community, that there are events that happen there once a quarter that the parents get to come to and they feel part of. And that would be a great resource in those meetings also with parents that like to serve on different committees just in their buildings. Whether it's diversity and inclusion or whatever things they're trying to roll out in their building level with different arms of PTA or SCC.
So let's see, Amber had a thought and then Steve.
I mean, I think this is a good idea, but I am a little worried because I want to make sure the board, I mean, we're supposed to be up here. We're not supposed to be telling you guys what you should do. Like, we're the what, but you guys are the how. So I just worry a little bit with these committees if we're gonna get intermixed in administrative stuff. See what I'm saying? But I do think it's a good idea, but how are we gonna avoid that?
Well, I think the premise is that you're at 30,000 feet, right?
Okay.
And I think, I mean, to me, the strategic vision, that already sets that framework and context. So if
Yeah,
those
that's what I'm
committees,
saying.
I know, so we got to stay in our lanes, right? Like we got to stay focused to what we're aligned to. And if we say we're committed to the strategic vision, then that's the language that we stay focused on. And to me, the committee work is really to operate at that level. I mean, are we, when it comes to high quality instruction, what does that look like in relation to portrait of a graduate? Super high level summary discussions. And, I think it's kind of holding each other accountable to that, right? Versus if whichever committee I serve on, instead of getting granular and into the weeds, and I think kind of doing what you're suggesting, right, is that we just make that commitment that it's going to be a governance model. And when it comes to what our role is versus administration, we're going to respect that.
I also see it as possibly also just helping with time efficiency, because there's so many different ways to interpret a document. And so if these committees meet and they go off in a different direction, then report back to the board and the board says, oh, well, actually, we can end up not being, careful of our resources and time.
Steve, did you have?
Well, you just added that comment before the next comment. I think in a lot of our committees already, we sort of sit at a 30,000 calendar committee.
Yeah.
We attend the calendar committee. We don't tell them what to do. They often.
Well, we shouldn't tell them.
Yeah, and that's the appropriate role. And sometimes they'll ask us, what do you think this will fly?
Yeah.
Yeah, will this fly and stuff? So I think if the committees themselves don't develop the product, they just define the product, and then it goes to the different departments and different people that come back with the products, I would guess.
Well, I think, for me, part of it is just establishing relationships between board and administration that's positive.
I think that's good.
Right. And that's something that I think, like I'm saying, the strategic vision at the time and place that we're at offers us that opportunity that, maybe through the pandemic, I mean, it wasn't necessarily like that. But it does hopefully kind of get us in the same boat, rowing the same direction. If we all kind of recognize that in that spirit, then it really will be a North Star that can guide the district.
So the other comment that I wanted to make is that I'm also noticing some interesting trends. And Jeff will love this one. We're having more and more people that are aging out that we need to communicate with, because the common question is, what are you doing for us? Why are you doing this? And what am I getting from this? And we're getting a whole bunch of other young families coming in as people are moving out, and they're asking, what are you doing for us? But more than that, they don't know what we can do. And so a lot of times I'm seeing, well, we're going to go to this charter school, or we're going to go here. And I'm going, well, did you know we have these 3 or 4 other options for you? No, I didn't even know. So I think we need to capture and get that information out to them so they can become Canyon's positive and moving in that direction before they ever get into that. Yeah. And that may mean sending out a couple just general flyers with join our mailing list or something, and then electronically sending the flyers. So it doesn't cost us so much, but I'm seeing that with both of those groups on we have the middle things set by most of the stuff we set out, but on the far ends on either end now, we're getting more and more of those. And they need that information that we're doing, so they can feel part of the district also.
So it sounds like at least those of us that are here feel like forming those 4 standing committees would be a good way. I think it sounds like a good way for the board to just be involved appropriately, but also to just help keep things focused on our strategic plan, right? So that work stays focused. I think, probably not find us actually form the committees and make board assignments, but I think we can maybe look towards doing that at our next meeting.
How, Nancy, would you like to, that's awesome. How would the board, what's your reaction to reestablishing or administration presenting just a framework around baselines?
Yeah, so, and I think, I think because those indicators and targets, they, even what we have now applies to all areas of the strategic plan. I think it does line up pretty well with some of those things. So I think it would be good to go back and revisit and see what those were and what our new baseline is. And then the board could talk about either setting some targets and or adding additional indicators. So I think overall, I think that's something that, and I put that in the summary at the end about that, we need to, that needs to be kind of an overall piece of this. Have the indicators and targets and the baselines, and then any new indicators that come up through, like some of the ones you suggested earlier. Yeah, so let's get some thoughts on indicators and targets.
So as we do this, I think we probably need to be able to figure out what's going to go on the website. I think all this needs to go on the website. So along with our strategic plan, what it is and where we're at, and report back. So it's pretty open and people can see where we're coming from. So how we put it together is going to be somewhat, but it needs to be almost more prominent in some cases and
I think so too.
more dynamic.
On page.
Yeah.
I know we've got a great IT department and stuff, how they can put stuff together, but it'd be nice to be able to get different people to see it dynamically changing stuff.
Yeah. Other thoughts on indicators and targets?
That sounded good. Are you, you're talking about adding new ones? Are we going to keep all the old ones, or you kind of decide what you?
I would keep everything that you have is so foundational to any school district and student success. It fits right into the plan. I think just some of these others are prominent just frankly because of the pandemic. Attendance, I don't think pre-pandemic we really ever, almost every district 90 to 95% attendance, and now with the pandemic and everything that's happened for a lot of reasons, right? That's something that we're all very concerned about. And it, that also kind of has repercussions with compulsory ed. And this is a big deal, and it's a big picture thing that, I hope all of us in our state will focus on, because it probably, if we're paying attention to that, then legislators are going to pay attention to that. And if we can demonstrate that, to show, that, hey, we need more support here, and, ending compulsory ed probably isn't the best idea right now. I think that's how we do that.
Yeah, that's good.
And a question about the indicator for like being off track or Ds or Fs. Through COVID, we had a very lax late work policy. Is that going to be part of that discussion? Because I think just real life experience in the schools, because there has been, through COVID, we haven't had any points docked for late work. And so some of these kids that actually weren't on target to pass the class didn't necessarily look like they weren't on target, because half the class has a D or an F 3 weeks before the term ends, you know, and I'm speaking hypothetically, but if that were the case, then it's difficult for us to have that as an indicator. So I think that needs to be part of the discussion is the change in the late work policy. So that we can have more accurate.
Right. Well, and one way to address
Indicator.
what you're saying is the indicator would only be at the conclusion of a course or of a term if they're still credit deficient, rather than midway through a term.
For our reporting, but not for
Yes.
the building.
Yeah, I would only report, I mean, in my mind, that would be an end of term, semester, end of year type of at the board level, but internally, you know, I've said to these guys, our cabinet, like, we need to be on that monthly. We need to know how those interventions are playing out, how we're intervening.
Which would still go to part of this, but just at the building level.
Any other thoughts on targets, indicators and targets?
Just, we've had some discussion on software and it's not gone very well. I think we may want to take a look on software and see if there is some software that's easier to use and gives us more of the data that we need. Some of our software systems and reporting systems are a problem to why we're not getting current data, because they're not mixing and matching. And we may want to take a look at that. How do we ease the data issues, but then get it more accurate?
So here's here's Rick Robbins' observation of Skyward. And we could belabor this all day, but I really struggle with Skyward's capabilities as a student information system / learning management system, right? And how it integrates with Canvas. So we have a major issue there. However, Skyward also is HR. Skyward also is finance. I mean, it has so many tentacles to it that it's also fair and right to, you know, look at it through that lens. It's not just hey, let's just, you know, change systems, right? I mean, it would take a massive RFP and process to even think about that. And I'm not saying the board doesn't consider that, because we may be in a place where maybe we have to break some of it away. But you're right, Steve, the part on learning, and I don't want to speak for our teachers, but just what I see is that Skyward is very antiquated that way, and they really haven't kept up with the other systems that are out there. But having said that, that would be a massive shift to try and.
Well, we have looked at interfaces or just keep Skyward for HR and that stuff and have another system that does everything else. So it's just something to possibly look at, because I know that's.
And I think we ought to circle back with Scott McCombs, because sometime during COVID, I
There's not
remember the
been-
time frame.
There is, yeah.
Came to the
Yeah.
board and presented that there's a major redesign.
There
of
is.
Sky.
Talk
So,
about that.
so we probably ought to, you know,
Well, and
speak to,
I mean,
you know, make any decisions based on
I
what
agree.
that would be.
see, and to credit our IT folks, I mean, and it's worrisome too. They're amazing, but all of that is institutional knowledge, right? They're
Yeah.
patching and creating all of these,
Yes.
you know, they're making it
Segregated.
work. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're programming to fix and to patch but at some point, you know, that really kind of becomes a house of cards, because it's like one or two people with all of that knowledge. So,
And it's not really built into the program.
Yeah.
They're just
But if the
segregating that.
redesign kind of
addresses that.
then that would be good to know.
Yes.
We're looking at a 21st century school district because we're running on 20th century software. Been around forever. And it's just, as you're right, it's just piecing it together, and I think it's one of the hindrances we have right now on getting the data and also causing extra stress on a lot of people in the process. So just something to think about in that process.
Great. So with kind of those overall things and kind of keeping in mind that looks like we might be heading in the direction of creating some standing committees for each of our 4 focus areas. Let's take a look at the summary and just review the items in each of the focus areas. So with high quality learning, the implementation, training and development and design of professional learning committees, which, as we know, the board did approve some time for the, once a week for schools and teachers to have these teams, to work in these teams. So, and then if you'll kind of see, there's kind of a couple sub points that were brought up in the discussion. Does anyone have anything to add to that particular topic that they recall from the discussion? Because I guess is what I'm saying is if we go the direction of committees, then we could turn this summary information as well as the actual strategic plan information over to the committee and then let the committees dissect it and process and kind of determine what's reasonable, what's doable, and then report back to the board. So.
Yeah, I like that. And I think when I looked at this, trying to match these, bulleted bigger statements with the bullets behind them to the impact statement. And I think that I don't know if now's the time for this feedback or not.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think that there are, under the high quality learning, we have like one of the impact statements not necessarily represented or.
And this just came out of our
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
So which impact statement was it that?
Okay, so we have like that first one's the fourth impact statement about and then we have the micro credentialing, which I'm assuming it's under that same fourth impact statement and the strategic initiative about meeting professional goals. Approach to the graduate would be the first impact statement about CSD graduates demonstrating mastery, autonomy, and purpose as set forth in the Utah's Portrait of a Graduate. And then competency-based learning model, that is, it's there, it's under. I find that one, then the third one. The third one.
Second one.
All students have access to the whole file.
Third one.
It is the second impact statement, but it's under the second strategic initiative. And then the engaging and diverse pathways, that would be under the first strategic initiative of that second impact statement. I just didn't see, I didn't see that third impact statement anywhere. This.
Which one?
Remind
us.
CSD provides clear standards for the development of principle-based character traits, which are integrated into all student life learning experience.
Remember, they just chose one or two that they were going to start
Yeah.
focusing on. They weren't doing all of them.
Right, but all
So-
the other ones are represented. So that was
So
my
that
question.
under the tier 1 student supports, one of the bullet points. Character education.
Yeah, so that is somewhat, this is also talking just about the experience and extracurricular activities and ability to provide feedback from students, parents, and employees. Assess their experience. So some of that character education, I think that more clearly fits under access and opportunity. I think this was a little bit more about project-based opportunities through extracurricular activities. So my question was, are we going to be intentional and try that to have each impact statement represented? Because if we have all of them but one, and that's a
yeah.
question for the group.
Yeah.
Saying,
So I think, like we've said, we can't do everything all at once. But I think if we form the committees, we could say, this is the feedback from the board roundtable. And then here's the strategic plan, and then have the committee make sure that they, feel good about what they want to work on, what's realistic, what's reasonable. And when you say, I mean, the idea of it's not represented, I mean, it is because it is part of our strategic plan. It just wasn't
Picked as
focused
one
as
of the
much
very first.
during our roundtable.
Right, and I guess that's my question is, are we okay with that? Like if we have two different, are these committee groups based on is the committee group gonna be high quality learning, or is the committee group PLCs and then portrait of a graduate and then
High
are there?
quality learning.
So
Okay,
all those four focus areas.
Core focus.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
we'll
then-
be tackling all of
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, and then just a little bit of kind of what you're talking about at the end of that summary draft.
Yes.
Overall practices, integrate music arts movement and enrich learning strategies
Yes.
is kind of an overall thing, right? That was talked about, but maybe what you're saying is also kind of guidance for the extracurriculars that we are.
Yeah, I thought there were two things that I didn't see super present that were a large part of our roundtable discussion. I thought there were many of us talking about
Okay,
that arts integration, hands-on learning, physical movement, and we don't have that in a bullet point or anywhere in here. And then the other
I
one was,
guess it kind of, for me, when I was summarizing it, felt like it fit into the overall practices, but we can certainly move it somewhere else.
Well, I'm sure that committee will talk about
Yeah.
it when they're,
Mhm.
working.
Because they have the language
Oh,
in the
yeah.
strategic plan as well.
okay, so yeah, and that was my question. So these bullet points are just starting points, but they'll flesh out and we can.
They're simply a summary of what I thought the discussion, when Rick and I got together, put our heads together on it.
So what might be an alternative as we get together in these groups is we flush out the 3 to 5 year plan. And make sure that they show up somewhere in the 3 to 5 year plan. Or the 2 to 5, and that way.
That
will-
everything in the
it won't-
strategic
Yeah,
shows
everything in the
up.
strategic plan goes somewhere within the next 5 year
Yes.
plan. And that group then decides that priority for that.
I like that, and I felt.
That way you're not gonna lose anything, but you don't
Yes.
have to list everything every
Yes.
single left year on the.
Yes.
Goal.
Well, and the overall practices, I really appreciate that you're saying, hey, these are so important. These are overall practices. But when we don't have it in the nuts and bolts, and the bullet points in the committee work, my concern is, will it get lost? Where is that being unpacked?
And if it's in here, it's pretty specific. It
Yes,
tells the dates and when
Yes.
the target date and then we. can-
Yeah.
This is what you're talking about, May 2024.
So,
yes.
So, but if the committee wants that too.
so if we put that in there,
Yes.
then it's gonna be, we know it's
Yes.
covered and the community knows it's covered and they know about when it's gonna be. Since.
Yes,
We don't have unlimited staff time and.
yes, and just making sure that in that roundtable discussion, those topics that kind of floated to the top, that several board members were talking about, to make sure that those should be in the bullet points as far as in the near future, not pushed out so far.
So where would you recommend they fit? I mean, like I said, these were just simply
Yeah.
a summary of notes, so it's
Yeah.
not any of, it's not an official document. of
Yeah,
any
so I was thinking that the integration of music arts movement and rich learning strategies in the classroom should be part of the high quality learning discussion in that committee work.
Okay, under
How that-
any one of these or,
Yeah, engaging diverse personalized pathways. Something.
okay,
And then I think that under that one as well, we could fit that other strategic plan about the experience in the extracurricular,
the,
And
the impact
the
statement.
elective classes.
Okay, any other thoughts on the high quality learning section?
Which are the priorities from the administration that you saw on this section? Is that what you gave us on this one here?
Mhm.
High quality.
Yeah. So,
We kind of merged what they brought to the board and what the board said is what we
So
did in this summary
the
statement.
priorities that came back from administration's PLC for the graduate personalized professional learning were top ones for the next year.
Mhm.
And were they 2 years? Because this went from like a 1 year plan, or is it 1 to 2 year plan, and this is a 3 to 5 year plan. Isn't it?
Well, I mean, they're just kind of projecting out, right? And just trying to lay kind of the tracks of how this all unfolds. Obviously, PLCs are immediate, right? We're well underway in planning, implementing, engaging that, which that kind of, I mean, that really folds or unfolds across a lot of different areas, right? Teachers working in teams. That's going to not only address academics, but behavior and wellness of students. So yeah,
So these seem like they're the key ones, the 3 that you gave us on this other form. And same thing, reports for graduates, sort of the base foundation of everything that needs to be completed. I didn't see what if we do it this year. These are this year's priorities. This is probably next year's priorities, and this is the priorities for the next 2 or 3 years. So I don't know. Maybe the committees meet. They could sort of.
they can take the timeline and we can refine that in those committees about.
Some of the timeline comes in August of 2020. And that's a.
So the committee can help with the timeline too, you're thinking, or.
No, this is just,
All of
this
it's
is
not-
just first draft. Here's I asked cabinet to just think big about, okay,
Yeah.
look at the big rocks. How can we unpack this in a way that like makes some chronological sense? Because there are so many comprehensive things. They're
Yeah.
all important,
Yes,
but we just, we gotta eat this elephant one bite at a time.
yeah,
Some of them have to come before others.
Yeah.
And some may be quick to do if we're marking off a number,
yes,
but may not be as important as the critical few. The big rocks, as Covey would say. Yeah, what are the big rocks we're doing rather than pouring water and sand in?
Well, and there's a lot to consider there, right? I mean, I think kind of going back to your point, Steve, about employees, especially teacher wellness, and thinking about hiring and retention and how we can support teachers and their mental health and their wellness. Remember, we've got wonders
And the janitor.
still unfit, right? And all of our staff and our custodians. I'm not taking away bus drivers and all, right?
Yeah, they're all stuck in that group.
But we also have some of these other things that are unfolding at the same time. And so I think just being cautious and reflective about how much is on everyone's
Yes.
plates and just being cognizant of that, and we'll get to the sweet spot, right? I have no doubt that the plan is well done, it's well written, and it articulates the future vision for the district. But I think we got to recognize, we've been in a pandemic for 2 years. People are highly traumatized still,
yes,
and it's just going to take time, and there's just and we're feeling that, wellness, the economy, all of it is.
Well, and that's one of the things I like about the committees working it through, because they're gonna be a little more practical. Their conversations are gonna be more practical than what we're talking about
yes,
here. But then at the same time, they'll report back to the full board. So it'll have that other layer of review that will then help kind of
Forward.
move it forward, but also maybe even pulls things back if we feel like it's too much. And so. Go
I
ahead.
really like the structure. One of the things that the pandemic has done to us as a district and as a country is we have little hope. And that's why you're seeing a lot of your kids right now having behavioral issues. There's no hope for a brighter future in some cases. This will define that for us and give our staff saying, we are addressing those issues. We need to with parents. We are addressing those issues. And this is when this is happening. So I'm hope more than anything else, it brings hope back into the district and into our individuals. Because when our employees lose hope, that's when they leave. When our students give up and lose hope, they drop out, either physically or emotionally out of school. So we have not just an epidemic of depression, stress, we have an epidemic of lack of hope. And I'm hoping that this does addresses that in the process.
Well, it's a great stabilizer, and hopefully that's what it does, is bring stability and continuity and light at the end of the tunnel, that hey, we're moving forward and rowing in the same direction. So
It also gives us, hopefully, using hope too often. But it hopefully gives us an opportunity to focus on other than the crisis of the day. I mean, in many cases, we focus on the crisis of the day, but we got caught up the last 2 years in doing crisis of the day and we forgot the future. We're pulling back and saying we're looking at the future. And if we may even put away some of the crises of the day to say, we'll have to wait because you got other stuff we've got to do.
Any other input on this section? I just have a little bit of input that Amanda wanted me to express about the micro credentialing and just kind of a reminder. And I know Clarine brought up some concerns about really what that was, what it meant, what it would require on our teachers. So, and in this section, I tried to list some of those concerns that were expressed, and I hope that the administration and or the committee would take that very seriously and understand that while it's exciting and it probably has a lot of potential for some positive good, we just need to be careful that it's not jumped into prematurely and it's really something that ready for the to be rolled out, and that it's not, again, we've talked a lot about understanding things like that, but it's really clear exactly what it means and what's expected and things like that. So, it's just a little bit of additional input. So.
And I think with that too, timing is going to be really essential with that, as far as the timing of when that is rolled out, because of the changes with different curriculums that we're going to be doing this next year as well. And just barely the wonders and things like that, that it's delivered at a point in time when teachers don't feel overburdened by all the changes,
Right. Even though I recognize, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct in remembering that she stressed that it was all voluntary, none of it would be required. But still, even if it's an opportunity that's presented, we all know our teachers are just overachievers, right? They want to do everything. And so, and so, yeah, anyway, just wanted to kind of bring that up as well to make sure that that's good. Keep that in mind. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to see micro credentialing sort of fit into our career ladders. A lot of teachers do not want to go into administration, but they're still looking for some kind of career ladder. And if we could tie this to micro credentialing and other stuff, that they could actually continue to move up somewhat on a ladder based upon work that they've done and making them more effective in what they're doing. That would be an alternative than going for the one or two that open up in the district. And it might retain people because they can do that within their own profession rather than having to leave and go to the dark side administration or whatever.
I think a lot of teachers want to be, teacher leaders, but not be administrators, and they are experts in their field. And I think recognizing that, Steve, like one thing to think about, and this is big picture, I think micro credentialing is probably a few steps away from some of these other priorities, but I think incentivizing micro credentials with pay, because a lot of these are done by teachers on weekends or on their own time, but it really is for their own personal growth. They choose the specific skill sets that they want to work on. It's very job embedded, but building it in a way that creates kind of a stackable credential that leads to that teacher leader pathway that I really want to lead and I want to grow, but I don't want to be a principal. It does a couple of things. One, it really supports their own professional growth, but two, it is an awesome retention strategy because that element doesn't leave with them if they go to another district. And I say that selfishly, but that's just one strategy that we could put in place that wouldn't be high cost, that would really support our teachers and help them earn extra dollars, but it would also make it very hard for them if they wanted to leave, that those credentials, yes, they got the learning with it, but that pay increase that came with it stays, only in Canyon. So that might be a strategy that we look at.
Yeah, actually, I like that idea. Just somewhere to move forward.
Good.
be recognized for what they're doing.
Okay, all right, let's move to the next section, access and opportunity. Any comments or feedback on the summary ideas here? And as, I'm sure you've all noticed this, but I'll just kind of express it. So many of these things do overlap, right? And, but I think that's actually a very good thing, because that means we get kind of double coverage on some ideas, and the, you know, it's, and hopefully prevent any gaps where things get lost. So, I think, you know, like this parent engagement thing, it actually is both kind of the communication operation thing, but it's also access and opportunity, and the work, the language in the strategic plan, I felt this idea fit better in the access and opportunity section, but that's not to say that there's not also communication strategies that need to be implemented through the operations section. So yeah, thoughts, Steve?
One of the things in the training for teachers and staff, we may want to put in there gen ed. We tried for a while in autism to teach our gen ed teachers, but all of our gen ed teachers are getting more and more kids are somewhere on the spectrum. And that would be good for micro credentialing, but it also be nice to have more of our teachers that are trained, gen ed teachers trained in some special education. It would make their life easier and make the ability to teach. Now, I understand some of the stuff, the reading program, are doing better with addressing that, but we've had some limited encouragement more, because we are getting more and more kids that fall on the spectrum, learning disabilities and everything else. They really need that. I don't think they're giving that in regular education programs.
I mean, in the preparation programs in the university.
College, yeah, I don't think they're, not that I'm hearing from them. Are they?
Not just elementary to secondary.
Yeah, for gen ed teachers at all levels.
Yeah. At all, yeah, because that just, it makes such a difference, but I don't think there's. My daughter just got out of school and she didn't have any special education in math, so, but she's gonna get kids that are on the spectrum. So.
Okay. Let's see, Holly, and then Amber, did you have? Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I saw your hand.
This one, I like that we have special ed and 504. And, you know, I'd like to include also just anyone with an IEP. Sometimes we have advanced learners that have needs spelled out in an IEP. And just making sure I know in our strategic plan that was part of it too, is teachers and staff getting training for learners that need more. And I think that this, like you said, Nancy, that I love is I do feel like this is kind of double coverage, because when we're spelling out the training for teachers and staff for every type of student, that's personalized learning, which is threaded throughout our strategic plan. So I would just like to include that other group of students, the ones that need more. And I know that in my committee workshops with teachers, that was something that they were asking for also, to have a few more tools in their belt for the few students in their classroom, especially in the elementary school, that need more, and they're worried about how can they meet their needs.
So I think, you know, gifted and talented is a
Endorsement.
set of students. So,
Yes.
okay.
The other thing, well, I just have a note, which I think we're talking about the same thing, but that just says said accelerated. And I don't really see on here.
Yes.
I mean, is there, I mean,
Well, we talked about, I know we talked about it, and like I said.
It got lost. It's not in the bullet points. I do feel like it could be in that first section with engaging diverse personalized student pathways, but then also in this, because we're talking about access and opportunity and distribution of resources. So the advanced learners, and I think the term we did was advanced because now they're calling accelerated learners also as the kids that need to be accelerated because they're behind.
Right, yeah.
So now it has
We
two
had that
different
discussion.
definitions, yeah.
So I think we use the word advanced. Yeah.
Advanced, yeah, and so I think we need to
So
put
do we
that.
not have advanced learners in
It's
here?
not, no, it's not. It's nowhere in access and opportunity, and it's not in engaged and diverse personalized student pathways either. We've lost it in both places.
Okay, all right, so.
Where? Access and opportunity.
I mean, it's also a personalized student pathway for success, so I think it really belongs in both places. It's
I
not
mean,
only
right here it says create new programs to meet learner needs. Okay, I guess that could, I mean, we're just not saying.
we're
specific.
just not spelling it out.
Yeah.
I just like having it under this training for teachers and staff section, just because in that workshop, I specifically talking to a teacher that was saying she would like more. And we have spelled out pretty much every other type of learner in those bullet points. Special ed,
Oh, yeah,
504,
that's okay.
multilingual. So that's why I was like, oh, this is kind of ironic. We're talking about access and opportunity, but we've left out a student group, so
Mhm.
maybe you want to include it there.
Yeah.
I think so, I agree.
And again, there's language also
And
in
it's
the
there.
strategic plan language, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, any other thoughts on the access and opportunity section?
Just one, we talked about it earlier, says parent, I probably put parent and patron engagement. Just rather than parent, we're seeing more patrons, grandparents, we're seeing neighbors, we're seeing people volunteering and trying to get people and patrons in the neighborhood to volunteer in schools.
Mhm. That's
That,
good.
that maybe we need to focus most on parents and the patrons.
Good, and that's more reflective of our strategic plan as well, because we included that language in there.
Okay. All right, anything else on this section? Okay, Rick, anything on this section? Human-centered supports. Like Steve, you mentioned earlier, we've got cell phone policies in there and digital citizenship.
Uh-huh. Under foster a sense of belonging, I would love to have a bullet point about building a sense of community within the school. That we're intentional with different training we're doing with our administrators, as well as these assemblies and things within their school building to build a sense of community and a school climate.
All I have to create school spirit and identity.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
Intentionally.
and I think how I kind of summarized that was enhance school identities and symbols, so. That
Yep.
was my recollection of
Yes.
of the comments you made, but not as much a bullet point, build sense of community in the school.
Uh-huh.
Anything that's different than school identities.
I think so.
So. In the life skills area, I'm not sure how we put it in there, but how do we draw parents in as partners in this process? Is if the parents know the tier one interventions, the strategies for this, the trauma informed stuff. A lot of our parents do not have these skills. They miss that generation, I think. And how do we teach them so that they feel a partner in this in the tier one, rather than you go to school, they'll provide your tier one intervention, you come home, we're not going to do that. But you
So-
teach them and help them.
I think kind of two pieces to that, Stephen. It's layered, right? So the first layer is the urgency that we get tier one supports in our schools, especially K-8. And I've asked Brian to build those modules ready-made based on those competencies that the board outlined in the strategic plan. And those are also based on Portrait of a Graduate, right? So that's kind of the foundation to it. In that also, I've asked that there's parent involvement and representation across the entire district as part of that. And so I know he's working on that. I don't know that we'll have, a full slate for the entire year ready, because we're developing curriculum, but we will have ready-made. Essentially for elementaries, it's lessons every day. For middle school, it's once a week. And then high school, we'll bring them on board, as we can. I think in that though, how we outsource that to the parents at large, I don't know if we're just gonna have to decide, is that a school-based plan? Is that something the district, I mean, we can do a lot to really push that out, but engaging parents in assemblies or in, closer engagement where to your point, where it makes a lot more sense for them to talk to their kids about respect or empathy or,
Well, it's
resilience, whatever.
For example, the Leader in Me program, when they have the curriculum at the school, they share the curriculum with the parents so they could talk the same language at home and reinforce it and start living it at home. So
Well, building common languages from the start, right? I hope that's something that we got to get established. Like when we expect this type of behavior at school, we all understand what that language means. I think we're probably to your point where my assessment is we're not in a place where we're ready to engage it at that extent out to parents that way. I've just been super hyper focused on we've got to get this in the hands of our teachers and schools right away.
Oh, let me just finish up there.
Yeah.
I agree. We need to focus on that, but a tier 1 kid in school is a tier 1 kid at home.
They are, absolutely.
If we don't have the same interventions in both places, we're gonna be swimming upstream. As far as providing some of that stuff, especially if they're going the opposite direction at home, because they don't have those behavioral skills. So we may want to do some classes or other stuff for parents for those, because it'll be a win-win for them if they say, oh, I'm really looking for something to change my child's behavior at home.
That's right.
And it'll go both places. So somehow, and we have a lot of parents saying we want to be involved and parent with us. So.
Oh, so what I was gonna say, I mean, I disagree with Steve. Last year, I won't name the program. But anyway, every Friday, we received as parents, just a short, this is what we talked about. I mean, it was like 2 sentences. This is what we talked about. This is the question that we discussed in class. I mean, it doesn't, or you could just we're talking about respect, here. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be some whole big page lesson for the parents, right? I mean, I just think it would be good if we were communicating.
No,
What we're talking about, the lessons.
Yeah, and just kind of to back up a little bit, in the overall practices we listed, because it came up time and time again, to be more intentional with parent involvement.
Yeah.
And whatever it is,
Yes.
we're, working on, and
Yeah.
so.
And one thing that came up in that discussion was the reverse classroom idea, where actually it goes to the parents before, not after. We're going to be talking about respect tomorrow. And these are some of the bullet points that we're going to be talking about. If you'd like to have a discussion with your child before, because that will also eliminate a lot of fear and concern if the parent gets the first opportunity to discuss it with the child. And they can talk about, and then go from there.
Or we're gonna talk about this next week. Yeah, whatever it is, if it's a once a week,
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And yes, I have a few more.
okay. All right, we're still on access and opportunity, right?
Yes. Oh, I didn't know we were still on access.
Okay, are we on human centered supports? Yeah, because it kind of,
We're on
tier 1,
We're on
we
human
put
centered.
under life skills, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, human centered supports.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Okay, I lost track too.
So on human centered supports under school safety, we had talked a lot about digital citizenship. And I think that ought to be a bullet point in there. And how
Digital
we're managing-
citizenship under,
I think
Under-
it's
under life
it's under
skills.
life skills.
Cell phone policies,
Cell phone.
digital citizenship. Okay. Oh, I didn't see it there. Okay. Okay, and then also as far as access to physical and mental health supports and just creating that safe environment. I know many of us did talk about start time. That can be under that.
so,
Kind of tying it to the mental health. I just didn't see it here listed anywhere. 'Cause it could be an overall practice, but I didn't see it there. Could be under that. mental health supports.
I think we've already said we're doing the bus studies, so maybe
Yeah,
But I mean, do we want that to be tied to that or no?
we'll probably tie it some.
I think it does need to be, otherwise it might not happen.
sorry, I thought it, no,
I think that's a good idea.
I thought it was in there, but if. I can't find it right now, so.
Yeah.
I
Or put
didn't
it
see it on the
somewhere.
email either.
So just school starting.
School start times.
And you thought it. That really bothers me because I thought I had it in there, but anyway. Under the access study. Study, bus efficiency study.
We've had some discussion on expanding student services to student and employee. That maybe is something we want to consider in there, and then maybe add a couple for places, because I know there's been some discussion on that.
About in-house clinics. Yeah, I
Clinic.
really think.
Some support for the teachers and our staff and
Yeah.
some
And
other
it's
stuff.
there under the second and third bullet
It's
point.
over there too, yeah.
Add staff, it's right there. And the in-house.
Yeah, but
clinic.
that's more than just our students, though. We've been talking about students and employees.
So you just want
It
to end
says
the,
add staff.
Yeah,
it's right there, but you're
staff to the
saying,
name of the
Oh,
student
you
support
wanted up
services
there.
department.
You want to up in the heading.
Read that,
yeah, it's right
but
there.
it doesn't, so at the top there, yeah.
So you want it in the bullet, in the
In
bold
the head that it says mental health supports for students and
and staff.
Well, where it says student services, so the bullet just is access to physical and mental health supports. And then what's in parentheses was Rick's notes about which department would
That's
lead
the
out on that.
yeah, I mean,
But we haven't renamed the
We haven't
department
read
yet.
it. Yeah,
yeah, at some point.
okay. And we have that
Yeah,
in-house
it's a
medical
good
clinic.
one.
It is a good one,
I just
really good.
be interesting, we go into the next year that, that we're supporting everybody, not just
Yeah.
students.
Okay.
Oh.
Anything else in this section? Rick?
It's good.
Operating systems.
First bullet points. Committee on.
Yeah.
Committee on
Committee on committees and or more committees and we're just gonna have committees everywhere we look.
We really look like we really love to work there.
So I guess if in our discussion earlier this evening about forming a standing committee to focus on for each of these 4 focus areas, the committee for operating systems would become the committee on committees, right? That would be the,
Operating systems. that would
look
be
at
it.
committees, how you can combine and how you can streamline it.
And when we're on the topic of the committees, I know at the last roundtable, you had a printed out version of all the different committees.
just
We didn't
kind of the
get-
current ones. Yeah, it was
we
just
didn't
kind
get
of
to
for
it.
information, right? We didn't get to that. at
Yes,
all.
so would this, under this operating systems committee, they would look through all those committees and maybe disband the ones that are no longer useful or.
So on that list, we're just kind of the board committees, but this would go a little bit broader than that
This is
because
All
throughout the district, they
committees.
have a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
committees, right? That aren't necessarily committees organized by the board.
Yeah.
We got more acronyms than you can.
You
I'm
can
still learning them.
dream
Yeah. I think I've got about 70% of them.
It's not mentioned in here other than in the top audit district departments, but we've had discussion over the years is what departments do we have, what departments do we need, and how do they work together better? And that may be a good job of this to take a look at that. Community's always asking us, you've got so many people, you got so many departments, how do you work together?
Well, that might be a good way to look, would there be any thought of redistributing some of the people in the departments? Because it seems like we have some departments that are just so overworked and maybe don't have as many people. Would there be any?
Well,
I don't know.
coming up on a funding.
Have to-
cliff, but I think that,
Through the
yeah,
outlet.
like we'll
Yeah.
make a recommendation to you in the next year or so. I mean, we're gonna contract the budget and we're gonna have to completely
Look at everything.
look at everything and kind of zero base budget this thing, and that's gonna mean some shifts in
Operating
how people,
systems.
where people are. It just has to.
Maybe a bullet point in here or something we didn't get in, just because it will be something you're saying is gonna have to happen the next year, just to
So,
look organizationally.
yeah, so kind of to that point, that was in the strategic plan, it talked about mapping committees and
Yes.
departments so that that it was fully understood how they align with what strategic plan says.
Mhm.
And then here we have study for efficiency and effectiveness of committees. We could add and departments. I
That'd be
guess.
good.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Because, I mean, we have to be
Mhm.
careful that we don't just kind of start shifting everything
So it's
just because it's
Right.
gotta be tied to the strategic plan.
Yes.
Must
be
value added.
And value added and the workload.
Mhm. Okay, any other thoughts on this one?
Well, as I said earlier, on communication, enhanced parent and patron communications. I keep on harping on that, but I really think we're getting more and more people that aren't parents in our district that really need to know the good stuff we're doing and be involved in it rather than against us.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. Anything else on this section? No? Okay, so then, I know we've talked about police a few times, the overall practices. One of the things that to drill down on the data. Surface level data. And I think that one of these committees, assuming we go that direction, would have to just kind of always keep in mind that whenever you're using data, that you drill down on the data or whatever it is, And so that was trying to represent that. Any other thoughts or anything on data, using data and the discussions and the planning and committees and all of that?
On the over.
And then, yeah, okay. And then we mentioned a little bit about integrating music arts and enriching learning strategies in classroom instruction. Again, we kind of talked about where to place that,
Yes.
but part of my thought was, that really is kind of an overall thing. It kind of crossed over a couple of areas. So, but we can place it in that one. Any other thoughts on that one?
I would think to include STEAM. I know in the earlier bullet point, we talked about tech sector and computer science, but just to have the word in there, STEAM.
Okay. Any other thoughts? That one? Okay, and then also we've talked about this quite a bit, more intentional parent involvement. So again, that's just kind of something in all we do. We just can talk about, okay, what role does parent involvement play? I mean, it's not, maybe in some regards, parent involvement might be in the design phase. Or sometimes it might be in the implementation phase, or sometimes it might be just a matter of better communication, right? So to just kind of keep those things in mind as we're moving forward, some of these initiatives.
So we need to be very clear when we talk with parents. We've gone over the board sometimes on surveys and we're asking questions that we can't do. We have to come back with an answer, we can't implement it. Like everybody says, I want to have late start this year. And you're going, that we can't implement that. No, you'll say that on a survey, but we need to figure out sometime on the surveys and stuff be very specific and get people's hopes up for something. I don't know, I'm not being clear about this, but it's,
I'm not sure where you're.
I can't run the district by survey. That gets very dangerous.
Okay. That might fit in up here under communications. Designing effective feedback loops and communication channels, right? Just to
The best way to get communications or
To-
feedback.
kind of talk about the the use of surveys in the district.
I mean,
Purpose,
sometimes we've done surveys and I'm going, I don't know if we can implement that, and then it gets everybody mad if we're not implementing the survey. We're going, but we couldn't to begin with. I mean, we don't know what you said, but yeah, right now, this date, we can maybe in the future. Maybe implement that, and we'll take that into consideration, but some of the times it gives that expectation that it's not feasibly possible administratively to do.
Okay. Anything else on those overall practices? Any other thoughts? Okay, and then we talked quite a bit about indicators and targets. Anything more to add on that? And Rick, you felt like maybe in August.
We could even, too, we could even design it in a way that we can hit on those that are already in existence, and then just some of these we could propose for consideration that.
Yeah, some of those other kind of overall ones, but I think also throughout this process, there might be, when we implement something, so say down the road, if micro credentials is something that we start implementing, then there would be probably an indicator of, how many teachers are taking advantage of it, and but we wouldn't know that until we kind of get a program or a plan ready to.
I think it's the plan is very breathable, flexible, and adapt and change. I think that was part of the beauty in the process. Was I think we had that in mind, that the plan would be adaptable. But this is something that lives. It doesn't just sit on your shelf, and so we can come back to it often and adapt as needed. And that's another thing the pandemic has taught us, that we have to be nimble. Things change in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, and that's another reason why I like that idea of the 4 standing committees, because it keeps it a lot. I mean, it keeps it in front of us and in action.
That's a really good point.
Stuff that comes up in any other areas, they got some places where we live.
Yeah.
Rather
that's
than
good.
going to the entire board as we have us during the pandemic. Now they'd be able to go to a specific committee and then come to the board from that committee. Be faster.
And that's really the purpose of committees too, is to do some legwork and then
Yeah.
report back to the board. So.
Because the board
Creates a
had
good
many meetings where we're acting as our own committee. And it would have been nicer if we were subcommittees and brought it to the board. We didn't spend as much time.
Yeah, big point.
Very good point.
Great. All right, well, that concludes kind of what I had outlined for this item on our agenda. Does anyone have anything
So,
else to add on this
Just
one?
a summary to summarize this, Nancy. I appreciate all of this. So kind of the end goal, our target here, objectives would be, 1, to get the 4 standing focus area committees established. Second would be then to present to the board on indicators and establishing baselines for future progress monitoring. But then also within those committees, we would just maybe set up some guidance on the language that you've talked about tonight, in refining and focusing on those priorities even more and how they fit to the strategic vision chronologically. And then at some point that probably merges with this document and timeline, so that we start to lay out a 1, 3, and 5 year projections. That's kind of how I'm.
And that's the work of the committees.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm understanding.
So the committees would have the strategic plan, the summary draft, of ideas as we've kind of modified it in our discussion tonight, and then your timeline thing.
And we would assign cabinet members to each of those 4 to help with that.
You will.
And how many?
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
and then the board will have a discussion
Who-
with the full board about making assignments. for The board to those. each of
Maybe some recommendations. Not all these committees are as busy as all the other committees. Yeah, as to, we need one or two board members sitting on committees.
Well, I think that's something we can talk about
I think we should have at least two.
when the
That's
whole,
my
when the whole board is,
I agree.
when we've got everyone here and they can kind of express, and everyone can kind of express what their preferences are, you know, their.
Yeah, there's 4 committees and there's only 7 of us. So I mean, if we had 2 on there, some would have 2 and one would have 3.
Well, we have, it's okay.
Okay, though.
That's okay. And then when we're setting that up, are we going to also just look at our current committee assignments? Because some of those committees may be absolved into these you know.
Well, yeah, we would definitely, yeah, we would just have a discussion on board committees, yeah.
Okay. Like in a board meeting study session?
Yeah.
You think, okay. Sounds great.
Awesome. Good work tonight.
All right, anything else then? Okay, that concludes the items on our study session, and we have a few minutes, so we will adjourn for now and take a little break and reconvene at 7:00 PM for the business meeting. Thank
Sound
you. Eric? You're shutting off. Are we on pause?
Yeah,
We're on pause.
We're gonna be positive.
Are we live still in here?
So live, but everything's.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is June 21st, 2022. We are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South 300 East in Sandy, Utah. This evening, I would like to just excuse Mrs. Oakes, Mr. Millerberg, and Mrs. Arnold. Also excuse Mr. Leon Wilcox. So the first item on our business meeting agenda is to approve the agenda for this evening, and I will ask for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight, June 21st. Do you want me to read it?
Okay, thank you for that motion. And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion passes. Next, we will be have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will ask, Mr. Jeff Haney will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll turn the time over to him.
Would the audience please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. And while you are there, next on our agenda is our recognition. So I will turn the time back to Mr. Haney and Kirsten Stewart from our communications department.
Thank you, President Tingy, for this time that the board grants us during board meeting to celebrate and recognize the achievements of Canyons District students, faculty, and staff. Tonight for our recognitions, we're celebrating the achievements of big winners, both academically and athletically. Those who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of recognition and commendation from the Board of Education and the superintendent. Our first honoree is no stranger to the Board of Education or the administration. That is Mr. Scott Jameson, the principal of Alta View Elementary School. Now, it takes a lot to surprise Mr. Jameson, but the Roadrunners did it when he was announced as the Utah Principal of the Year by the Utah Association of Elementary School Principals. Now, Mr. Jameson knew he was a finalist, but he said he didn't want to complete the final application because he had too much to do in his building, he said, and in typical Scott Jameson fashion, said that he didn't want to apply for an honor that he would maybe get himself. But his school community council and staff said, you know what, buddy, we're doing that application for you. But that was a secret to Mr. Jameson. Unbeknownst to him, they completed the final application for the Utah National Distinguished Principal Award. And last month, he was announced as the top winner. And it's believed that Mr. Jameson is the very first UAESP Principal of the Year, or in other words, the National Distinguished Principal from Utah of the Year from Canyon School District. So congratulations to Mr. Jameson. Now, I know that I said that it's hard to pull off a secret on Mr. Jameson, and we almost did it the day that we announced that he was the winner. And we would have kept that secret from him if he wouldn't have spotted me, Mr. Wrigley, and Dr. Robbins trying to sneak into the building for the surprise announcement in the gymnasium. So we're cheering for Mr. Jameson. Congratulations, Scott. You certainly do deserve it. It's also worth noting that Canyons District is home to the Utah Middle School Principal of the Year. And last year, Dr. McGill from Alta High School was the High School Principal of the Year, a trifecta of sorts for the Canyon School District. It goes to show the amazing quality of the administrators we have in the Canyon School District. Our next honorees are from Corner Canyon High School and Alta High School. Congratulations to Hawk Carter Bell and Charger Samir Cuevas. They were named the 5A and 6A Players of the Year in boys soccer. Now, Corner Canyon Junior Samir Cuevas is known to dominate the game like few others on the field. He scored a goal or recorded an assist in 11 of the 17 games for the Chargers this year, including a late run in the season in which he scored 2 goals in 3 straight games, and that helped the Chargers win the Region 4 title. Now he is a junior, so watch out for his senior year. Alta's Carter Bell was the center of the team that won the state title and earned Alta High's record-setting 9th boys soccer championship. He finished the season with 13 goals and 12 assists. He was at his best in Alta's 4-game playoff run. He recorded a goal in the second round win over Bonneville, and then added 2 goals and the overtime game-winning assist in the quarterfinal win over the rival Brighton High School. In the semifinal, he notched the assist on Alta's second half equalizer, which forced the game into overtime. And in that edge of your seat final, he buried the penalty kick to help the Hawks prevail in the shootout. What a year he's had, so congratulations to Carter. Also worth noting is the Deseret News named Alta High's Ferris Curdy the 5A playoff most valuable player. So congratulations to those players from Corner Canyon High School and Alta High School for earning those end of season achievements. Now, our next honorees are the women and the men who are the backbone of the volunteer effort in Canyon School District, the PTA. For their leadership and their efforts to advocate for school children, the Utah PTA received the Outstanding State PTA Advocacy Award at the National PTA's 2022 convention in National Harbor, Maryland. The Utah chapter has raised its voice by sponsoring forums, circulating informational materials, and meeting with government leaders on topics ranging from risks of substance abuse to the need for increasing funding for special education services, student mental health supports, and teacher recruitment. Present for the awards ceremony at the National Convention were Canyon's Region 17 Director, Terry Francis, and a past Region 17 Director, Betty Shaw, as well as several other staff members from Canyon School District. We give a big thanks to the Region 17 PTA for all of their efforts to help us build and maintain welcoming, secure, and prepared schools. So thank you, PTA, for all you do for Canyon's parents, teachers, and students. Now, don't forget about Canyon's Living. That's our Healthy Selfie Challenge. You'll see here that some of our staff members have forwarded to us or posted on social media some of the things that they are doing in this pretty great state. Canyons encourages the folks to show how they are Canyons living in this beautiful summer weather. All you have to do is snap a selfie, post on social with the hashtag Canyons Living, and you're entered into a drawing for great prizes. The first 100 get, Kirsten, remind me, is it free socks? Yes, with Canyons Living on them. And then whether you're hiking, watering the rose bushes, or even doing a little bit of goat yoga, we want to see how you are recharging your life. Everyone who posts those and we spot them will be entered into a drawing for some great prizes. So let's see those healthy selfies this summer. We'll show the world how Canyons lives, and how we are living. So President Tingy, thank you for this time. We turn the time back to you.
Thank you. And I was thinking as you were sharing with us Mr. Jamison's award, and how he spotted you guys coming. I thought that's probably one of his many skills and that he uses as being such an effective principal, is being able to see what's going on all around him. So thank you. Okay, next is our patron comments, and I apologize. I got so caught up in the recognitions that I haven't pulled out my statement. Okay, thank you for your patience. We've now come to the public comment portion of our board meeting. The Board of Education encourages public engagement and values input from our students, parents, employees, and other patrons of the district. A reminder that comments are for patrons and employees that and parents, students and parents of students that reside within the district. And patrons may provide board members with written documents pertaining to their comments. These documents must be submitted to the board secretary, Cindy over here, or via email to the communications@canyonsdistrict.org by noon of the following day. The time allotted for public comment this evening will be, we have 2 patrons that have signed up to address us, and each will be given 3 minutes to address us. The Board of Education does not engage in public comment on personnel issues of a district employee's character, professional competence, or mental or physical health. If a member of the public wants to comment on personnel issues, the board requests that those comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if the member of the public determines to verbally comment on personnel issues, his or her comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, defamatory, or slanderous comments about an individual. I'd also like to make it clear that the critical race theory is not being taught in Canyons District and is not part of the curriculum, and there are not plans for it to be included in the curriculum. And we ask for respect and decorum as in this part of the meeting, as well as throughout the remainder of the meeting. So with that, we have, as I mentioned, we have 2 individuals that have signed up, Mr. Nick Ruati and then Mindy Timothy. Yes, Mr. Ruati, and please correct me if I've mispronounced your name.
Ruti.
Ruti, wonderful. Thank
And-
you for being
I
here.
am Nick Rudy, and I'm a resident in Canyon School District area. And my concern or my comments tonight are about doing something to make sure that we do not have a Uvalde experience in the Canyons District. I'm under, I've been told that we have 1 resource officer for every 5 elementary schools. And I find that very troubling. We have 1 resource officer for every 3 junior high schools. I find that very troubling. I look around here tonight and we have an officer for 12 people. And we have 12 to 15,000 elementary students, is that 20,000 elementary students? Certainly, they need protection as well. Our schools need to be hardened. Our schools need to have somebody at the ready whenever school is in session. It's been my observation, we don't have shootings in courtrooms. We don't have shootings at the Capitol. We don't have shootings in the airports. We don't have shootings at the Senate. We don't have shootings in the Congress. We don't have shootings at the White House. And that's because every one of those places is protected by armed, trained, professional people. Now, I am a junior, senior citizen and a card-carrying member of the senior center. So, I am looking for a second job. I would be willing to submit myself for training and work at one of the schools until you could find somebody better. We have a couple of months before school starts. And so I think we should get to work on that problem, because I don't know if I could ever be happy again if something like what happened in Texas happened here. This is my city. This is my area. I'm in love with it and the people, and I don't want to experience that. I would like to see us be reactive or proactive instead of reactive. Once the shooting starts, it doesn't matter how many squad cars and how many agencies show up. It's too late. It's too late. So please, there's people that know more about this than I do, but I do know that what I see concerns me tremendously. One resource officer for 5 elementary schools, not enough. Sometimes I'm told there's 2 police officers here, and those kids deserve more than they're getting. They need to know they're safe. Teachers need to know that they're safe and will be protected. I can't tell you how much that means to me. Please act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Timothy?
Thank you so much for your time. I'm again Mindy Timothy. I'm a middle school teacher in Valley Middle School. I teach 8th grade science. I am a board member on the CEA, but I'm here just talking for myself. I wanted to first of all thank you so much for. I went to a study session this week and 2 weeks ago, and I just really appreciate the conversation when you include all stakeholders, parents, but also students and teachers and staff members and administrators, because we really all, I feel, have the same goal. And it just is very encouraging that you do consider all stakeholders. The second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to thank you for your attention to maintaining teaming in middle schools. I love my team at Albion. I had to do, and it's not just it's my content team and my IPLC team. I have to do a shout out. I know this is not personnel issues, but my administrators, Molly Hart and the vice principals, they're amazing at supporting teachers in doing these endeavors. My coworker, Tracy Everett, as a science teacher, we're both 8th grade science teachers at our school. I mean, we work just hand in hand. We just had a meeting last night via Zoom, trying to plan how we're going to strategically, divide and conquer this summer so that we can have a more, good beginning of the year. And I just felt so encouraged by that. Like Leslie Allen, she's our district science specialist. I'm sorry, I'm excited, so I talk fast. But there's, and then also my cross curriculum team. They're amazing educators, so professional, and I'm so grateful that I get the chance to work with them, time to plan not just curriculum ideas, but how can we help these kids? And I feel like it's important to recognize that we have had success. Even in these last 2 very difficult years, there has been significant success with some of these students who struggle, because we can work together to how can we help them, not just curriculum, but the people that we work with. So thank you again for supporting those best practices, because it's one of the things, I mean, like I told you last time I was here, I've been here 17, I'm going into my 18. I'm excited for my 18th year because of the way that I know that my team and I can plan and really help these kids. And I'm also thinking it's going to be a better year than last year anyway, no matter what, because it can't get much worse. I shouldn't have said that. This is supposed to be a positive comment. It is. I'm excited. I'm excited for next year. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate, we appreciate those that have come and taken time to address us. And just a quick reminder that it is the board's practice to listen and take notes during the patron comments. And as we don't discuss matters that are not currently on the meeting's agenda. So thank you. Thank you for your time. And let's see, Mr. Wrigley, you had a question?
Just a statement, I guess. Nick, stay around. I suspect the superintendent may address those issues in his comments in a few minutes, since it's going to be a short meeting.
Thank you. Okay. So that concludes our patron comments for this evening. And next on the agenda is the consent items. I will ask for a motion. And in making that motion, please read through each of those items listed under the consent agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including approval of minutes for June 7th, 2022, approval of hire and termination reports, approval of purchasing bids, approval of student overnight travel, and approval of May financial reports.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion to this motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, that does conclude our business items for this evening's meeting. And next on the agenda is staff comments. I'll turn the time over to Superintendent Robbins.
Thank you, President Team. And I just want to thank both of our guests and patron comments tonight. And Nick and I talked a little bit before the meeting actually started. And I think the situation in Texas weighs heavy on all of us as parents, as community, as a nation. And we can certainly do better. And I'm in agreement with Nick that having law enforcement at our schools needs to be and always should be a priority. And he's right that that's probably one of the strongest preventative measures that can be taken. Obviously, there's costs involved in that, and you know, tonight's not the night that we can make that type of decision. But I think continuing to bring that to our attention is important. The wheels are turning in this regard. I've directed our emergency management team to conduct an audit of all of our schools to identify our gaps and bring those forward and report to the board. And there are going to be some gaps that we can address. That also involves different technologies that are out there that we can utilize to fortify our schools even better. I also think it's important, we've talked about this before, the focus on wellness and mental health. The unfortunate thing is that in this world and day and age we live in, somebody that's that bent on evil, I'm not sure, you know, that we can 100% stop. We want our schools to be a welcome place where kids feel safe and can learn. At the same time, you know, harden them as infrastructure and protect our kids and what's most precious to us. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I really appreciate all the work that's in place that's happening. Don't want to go into a lot of details to, you know, give away our plans, but certainly this is on our priority list. And as mentioned in study session, you know, out of those items, it's right there at the top with the other priorities for this school year. So I would anticipate in hopefully July or August, you know, we'll have more of an update and report to the board on some things that we can address in the immediacy and as well as maybe, you know, middle and long term. So, but I really appreciate the comments tonight, Nick. And I think it goes without saying, I know we have law enforcement here, but they're very appreciated. And we know how important, you know, their role is in the district and not just serving our students, but our community and our families. So really appreciate them.
Thank you. And Mr. Wilcox is excused. So now we have a few minutes if board members would like to give a report. Mrs. Schill?
No comments.
Mrs. Nygaard?
I too would like to address the school safety issue and have this patron know that we did have a robust discussion after that horrible event in a study session also, and going through different logistics. And I appreciated Dr. Robbins' comments, not only in making sure that our schools are safe with all different methods including video surveillance and locked doors and all of those things. And also the importance of being proactive. You mentioned that in your comments, and there's a lot that can be done as far as creating a school climate where kids feel accepted and welcomed, and teaching the children to be a friend and to sit by someone alone at lunch, and digital citizenship. So many times in today's age, the bullies follow the kids home from school because they're on their phone. They can never get away from them. And so being proactive with teaching kids the importance of being kind, and those things are also so very important, as well as the preventative and protective measures. And I just wanted to send a quick thank you to our building administrators. They are so often, I joke that they are multitaskers of conflict resolution by the hour. They do so much for our schools, for our students, and for our parents and our community. And so grateful for them and how dedicated they are. My favorite thing is their love for the students. I had an administrator say, sometimes when I get discouraged because I'm resolving the problems, all I need is 5 minutes in a classroom. I go into the classroom and recognize that 98% of our students are doing good things and they're enjoying their learning environment. And it's only the 2% that needs some correction. But I just really appreciate the amount of hours that these administrators spend going to school activities, and promoting our kids and making sure that they have a healthy and safe place where they can get an education. So grateful for them. And that is all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wrigley.
Thank you. So in response to your request, we are actually meeting as a group. 3 board members sit on the emergency response team for the summer. And we're going through our major whole plan and looking at audits throughout the whole district, and looking for anything. So we're trying to be diligent in because it concerns us way much. Also, I want to thank all the people. I had an opportunity. I don't know if I want to thank the opportunity to go to a primary, but every time that happens, it's sort of interesting. Gives you an opportunity to get out and talk with hundreds of people, and get to know what's going on. I appreciate everybody in the district, and there are concerns out there. Some are addressing. Some of them that we talked about today are communication issues that people think something that is not happening. And social media is really good at nowadays passing that on. But hopefully we're going to try to move forward and trying to come up with the district side of the story and everything, so it's out there before anything happens. So I wish all a happy and fruitful summer off. And for most of our staff, our administrative staff, it's just a different season. There's no off into it. I think there's like about 2 or 3 weeks in the entire summer they have a vacation. The rest of the time they're cranking up already for the next. So for those individuals, we do so appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just, as Ms. Timothy was addressing us about some of the work that's happening in the summer, I just want to reiterate how, it's not just summer off, kind of last day of school, and then don't even think about it again till the day before the first day. These educators and administrators are working. They're investing their time and their energy and often their financial resources in receiving training, and they're reaching out to each other, and they're connecting, and they're thinking about things. And I hope that they're able to do that summer work in a way that is also refreshing and reinvigorating, and that and I just appreciate it, because so often there's the impression that, oh yeah, they get 3 months off. Well, we all know summer's shorter than it used to be. And there's a lot of amazing work and effort that goes often goes unnoticed. And so I just wanted to also kind of piggyback on what Mr. Wrigley was saying about in the summer, how much work there is, but encourage all of our employees and staff, just take some time. I hope you do get some time to kind of disconnect and refill your bucket with whatever it is that helps you refill it. And I wish everyone a great summer, and with appreciation for all that is happening, and the level of commitment is amazing to me. And so with that, I guess, unless there's anything else, I'm looking at the clock and it's like, okay, this is great. For all of you that's been with us, let's see if I can just kind of milk it for a few more minutes. No, I won't do that. But all of you that have been with us for our late nights, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll declare this meeting adjourned.